If there was anyone to be found on Santa's naughty list, it was surely Cindy's older sister, Maddie. Cindy was 8 and Maddie was 3 years more, and never had once said a nice thing to Cindy in her life, or so it seemed. Cindy's my favorite. Cindy is so pretty. Cindy this, Cindy that. Those were the words of what Maddie's father rang in Maddie's head every time of that year, especially around Christmas time, when Cindy was talking sweetly of gift giving and decorating and loving her family and friends. Cindy was sweet, but it made it so enthusiastic. All of she wanted was to be loved by Maddie, the way she loved Matt herself, loved Maddie. Since Cindy was a baby, Maddie never liked her. Some of Cindy's earliest memories revolve around her, the constant sideways, would always looks that she would give from the past. Passive aggression, the endless competitions for her mom's affection. Cindy was always the one to receive it. But on certain days she would ask her mother to pay Maddie some attention. "Oh, your sister's fine," her mother would say. "Your sister's got plenty of attention." And after saying this, her mother would usually give in to Maddie and a half-hearted pat on the head, and then go right back to giving Cindy all the affection a child would ever need it. It left it a hollow place in Cindy, and all she tried to give Maddie she loved was so desperately needed. Maddie would shun Sydney as if Sydney was a leper. Now this year, Maddie had been extra bitter. Perhaps it was the additional attention Sydney had garnered for her performance in the school's Christmas play. Or maybe it was the way Mom constantly bragged about Sydney's acting. "She is the next Meryl Streep, I'm telling you," Cindy's mother would brag. But for whatever the reason, Maddie took every chance she saw her torment towards her younger sister. Cindy woke up one morning with gum in her hair. The other day she found that her underwear was soaked in honey. Her favorite dolls would go missing. The TV in her room, which Maddie wasn't allowed to have, since it was constantly unplugged. Yet Sydney's desire for her sister's acceptance continued throughout the month of December, and she continued to be kind. She persisted in giving Maddie some compliments when her mother did not. The gift at the top of the Maddie's Christmas tree list was a brand new makeup kit. Sydney made sure that the one would be able to give it to her this Christmas morning. Despite all this, Sydney had felt wear and tear from all of Maddie's torments throughout the month, and it all came to a breaking point on Christmas Eve. The family had sat down for Christmas Eve dinner table and ate ham, mashed potatoes, and Christmas cookies. Sydney's mother had been bragging shamelessly all night about Sydney's acting. There was no mention of Maddie. Not at any point. Maddie was stewing and Sydney could see it. At one point throughout all the bragging and praising and gloating, Maddie chimed in. "I don't think Sydney's acting is that good," she said. As a matter of factly, it was enough to bomb had gone off in the room. Everyone looked at Maddie, and they were unsure they heard correctly. It was like blasphemy. "What kind of that thing is to say?" asked her mother. Maddie shrugged. "I don't know," Maddie said. "I just think you're exaggerating a little bit. I mean, she's decent." All the memories of Maddie's torments began to broil and fester in Sydney's mind, and now there was Maddie, disparaging Sydney at the dinner table in front of the entire family, in front of all the aunts and uncles and cousins and friends. "At least I'm good at something," Sydney blurted out, and just like that, Maddie reacted into a pit of shame, Sydney's words ringing through humiliating, and her mother had fueled the fire by shrugging at Maddie in the fact of matter. "Your sister's got a point," said her mother. Sydney then felt horrible as she watched Maddie sulk and trudge off towards the bathroom like a beaten dog. Sydney hated the power she had held in her hands. That night everyone hunkered down in their beds and waited for Santa to leave his gifts below the tree. But Sydney had trouble sleeping. It was midnight now, and Sydney rarely found herself awake at this hour. But she knew why. Sydney removed her covers and hopped out of bed and tiptoed across the room. She was careful not to wake anyone. She opened her closet and grabbed her Maddie's wrapped gift. Then she tiptoed down in the dark hallway, dragged her fingers along the wall so not to stumble in the dark. I'll give Maddie her gift and I'll tell her I'm sorry and that I'll tell her I love her, Cindy thought to herself. That's what I'll do. And she'll be happy that she'll forgive me, and maybe she'll even say she loves me too. When Cindy arrived outside of Maddie's door, she heard a strange shuffling noises coming from inside. Perhaps Maddie was preparing another prank for Sydney. No matter, Sydney was going to walk in and give Maddie her present and try to make amends. Sydney opened the door just a crack, and she was careful not to startle Maddie. It was just so dark inside the room she couldn't even see a thing, but all she could hear was a great deal of shuffling inside the room. Sydney had stared into the room for quite some time, plenty waiting for her eyes to adjust to the gloom. When her eyes adjusted, she saw an empty bed, she saw Maddie's wide-open window, and she saw a 7-foot figure standing in the shadows. She saw a routed cage upon its back, and she saw Maddie sitting in the cage like a frightened bird. Sydney's terrified eyes further adjusted to the dark. She saw the figure more clearly, and it had a goat's head with large horns on top. Its eyes were red and impish and hostile. It wore a suit much like Santa Claus, and even had jingling sleigh bells hanging from the few ends of the garments. Sydney stood and frozen with fear as the creature glanced at her and gave her a nod and a wink. The creature made its way towards the window, and as it did, the last Sydney saw of her sister was her fear of sadness and regret, and the creature left as Sydney just stood there with her present in her hands. Down the chimney he will come, within his great big grin, and you'll find out that even the kitties are very liable to sin. What will Krampus say when he finds everyone sinning? What will Krampus say when he hears them sinning? And that, my little pretties, was Krampus Carol, a creepypasta written by Jake Wick. My final thoughts on this story. I honestly thought it was a really good creepypasta, especially for Christmas. It's a really well-made, beautiful, well-made story. I mean, it's a pretty awesome story, despite the fact that, this is involving, one sister that didn't really like the other one, or was probably most likely just jealous that her sister, quote unquote, gets the more attention than the other one. I mean, I don't know why her parents didn't like her for some reason, Maddie for some reason, but I don't really know. And Sydney's trying to basically give the message saying everybody should be loved equally, even if they don't get along or not. Now, I do know for a fact that Mr. Creepypasta and a couple other narrators have decided to read this story, and this one is mainly about Krampus. I mean, I really thought this was a pretty good Christmas creepypasta, and I honestly thought it was a really nice one, despite the fact that I have not touched this story yet. I mean, I've touched most of the Christmas creepypastas and even winter pastas last year on, my main channel, which is this one. And I also really thought that maybe I can go ahead and review this one, as this one is a pretty awesome, well-made story. It's a good story, I'm not gonna lie. It's a really awesome story involving Krampus. Now, the fact that, Maddie gets karma at the end, it really takes a toll on this the sister, and realize, some stuff that went on. So basically, the story is basically trying to send a message to, I guess you could get the idea and the point. So anyways, with that being said, I actually really thought this was a pretty awesome story. It was really good, really well made. It's definitely a really awesome story. I definitely really could say that it's a good pasta. I really do like it. And I honestly can say that it's still a really awesome storyline for what this one is. Especially with the whole fact of its own self and everything about it. It's just flat out amazing. So with that being the case, and with that being said, I'm going to sit here and just say this right now, that this was honestly a pretty fun story, I'm not going to lie. It's a really good story, really well made, and I definitely really enjoyed this story. I've honestly thought it was good. So, anyways, with that being the case and that being said, it's a pretty fun story. I really enjoy it. I thought it was really nice. So I really got to say the grammar was good, as well as the sentence structuring that. So I want to thank the author, Jake Wick, for honestly making this story. It's a fabulous story, definitely well made, and it's just perfect for the holidays. So, I mean, there were a few grammatical errors, I believe. There were a few grammatical errors in the story, but other than that, the story was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed this story. I thought it was really neat, well made in detail, and it's honestly a really good concept. Although it's kind of sad how, Maddie gets taken by Krampus at the end, but other than that, it's still a fun story. And I really gotta say, it's still a fun story. It's well made. I definitely gotta say, there's a lot of good concept regarding how well this story was made. So, anyways, with that being the case, and with that being said, I'm gonna sit here and say that this is just simply my own personal opinion. If you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas. This is just simply my own personal thoughts. Now, anyways, with that being said, I'm going to give this story a 10 out of 10. Like I said, this is just my own opinion. If you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too, because I respect your opinion regardless. So with that being said, that being the case, what did you guys personally think of this creepypasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Lion Queen. I want to thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications when it uploads. That way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, I'll be seeing you all in the next video. And roll the outro because I'm out.